Good evening. Welcome to the Cool Library. I'm Ellen. I mainly talk about books here on this channel, and this is going to be a book vlog that I did last year, and I was actually very successful with it, so I kind of want to do it again because I am very, very behind on my reading goals for this year. My goal, I think, was like 90 or 80 books, but either way, Goodreads says that I'm about 23 or 24 books behind schedule. So I need to catch up. I'm going to try and read one book every single day this month. So that means I'm going to try to read 30 books in 30 days. Hopefully I can do it and I can be as successful as I was last year. Today is the 1st of November. I don't have a whole lot of time to read, unfortunately, but I gotta read something. So I decided I'm going to start with a graphic novel. We've got Huda F. Cares by Huda Fahmy. In the video I did last year that was reading, I think that was 31 books in 31 days, I read her other book. I think it was Huda F. Are You? And I really enjoyed it. I think I gave it 5 stars. So I'm excited to read her next one. And let's see how this experiment goes for this month. A very sleepy Ellen coming to you. I finished Huda F. Cares. I'm giving it 4 stars. I still think I enjoyed the other one, the one I read last year, more, but this one was still very enjoyable. So with this, we are obviously following Huda. Her and her sisters and her mom and dad are going to Disney World. And she doesn't have really a great relationship with her sisters, but this is kind of like a sister story and like getting to know her sisters and becoming a little closer with her sisters. And it was fun, it was enjoyable, it was nice, and I liked a lot of the commentary on certain things. So like I enjoyed a lot of things about this book, but it's not one that I have like a real like attachment feeling to it. But it was still good, so hence the 4 stars. It is November 2nd, and I finished my second book, This Winter by Alice Oseman. I was very excited about this because every single Heartstopper book that I have read, I've given 5 stars. Even the other novella, Nick and Charlie, which I read in last year's same video as this one. Unfortunately, I'm giving this one 3.5 stars. I felt this was very bland. It also just didn't feel needed. But in this, we're following the siblings of Charlie, Tori, and Oliver, and their Christmas. And it's a very tough Christmas for all of them for different reasons. And we do get Nick in this story as well. I don't know, it's not very memorable. And it was just okay. Hence I'm giving it 3.5 stars. Hello, it is November 4th. I started a book last night but didn't quite finish it because I was just very tired. I also don't look too great because I just came from hot yoga and I'm currently doing laundry. So I'm sitting in my car finishing up the book that I started last night. But the book in question is At Night All Blood is Black by David Diop. Before I talk about my thoughts on the book, I noticed, okay, so the publishing company for this is Picador, and I'm trying not to read St. Martin's Press books because all of us readers are not reading their books. They're in book jail for right now. But in here it says Picador is Macmillan, but in one of my other Picador books, it said St. Martin's. So I am just a little confused if Picador is St. Martin's or is it Macmillan. But since this is Macmillan, I'm gonna go with that it's Macmillan, and I hope it's okay. Yeah, we don't support anyone who supports Israel here on this channel. Sorry, but we don't support people who support genocide. That's basically what it is. But this book is about a war. It's about our main character, Alpha Nadei. This takes place during World War I, and he is a Senegalese man fighting with the French to help them. And his like best friend, his brother from another mother, dies, and that kind of sets him on this crazy path where he kind of spirals and goes crazy himself, and people start thinking he's like a sorcerer. Here's the thing, I liked and I also disliked this book. I really liked the story that was being told, but the writing for me, I couldn't get into it. It was repeating itself a lot to the point where it was really annoying. He uses the phrase God's truth
so often. It's literally like once or twice in every single paragraph, or even more times, he says God's truth. And it's just, it was like so many moments where I was like, you don't need to say that in this moment. But yeah, so the writing for me just wasn't it, but I enjoyed the story that was being told to me, and this like guy's descent into madness. And now I gotta start and finish a whole nother book today, and I think I can do it. I don't know my rating on this book just yet because I just finished it, but I think it might be a 3.5. I'll have to come back to you when I put it through my rating system when I get home.
So this book came out to be a 4-star. It is the morning of November 5th. I finished this last night, so I did get to it last night, but it just, by the time I was done reading it, I was so tired and had such a bad headache that I could not form words. So here I am this morning to talk about the book. So this book was okay. I'm giving it a 3.5. It's a very like simple story about this woman who works at a convenience store. It's never mentioned in the book, but she seems very autistic to me because she constantly talks about a mask that she has to wear to seem like a normal human being, and she always like reacts differently to things than other people do, and she's just constantly like putting on a mask and like putting on a performance every single time she's like around people, which just feels like, gives me autistic vibes. But then also they never mention, but I think this character is also asexual because she never has any interest in sex or like romantic relationships. It's not explicitly stated that that's the case, but it's pretty much like in between the lines that that's the case. Her friends and family keep telling her like she needs to find a man, she's got to stop working at this convenience store even though she's worked there for 18 years. And they're like basically telling her that she needs to get a life. This guy comes to work at the convenience store, this new guy, and they kind of like form a plan to like get married to each other just out of convenience. There's a lot of commentary on like society, and mainly like a conformist society and how you have to conform to be a certain way, and there's no like individuality, and if you are weird and not like the others then you will be an outcast and banished. I think she had like a good thought process with that theme, but I don't think the execution of that theme was done well. Also, our guy character, I think his name was Shahira, he sucked. I absolutely hated every single word that came out of his mouth, and she just sat there and was like, okay. And I'm like, no, talk back to him. But then I get it, like, that's not her character. But it was just frustrating having him say such sexist and demeaning things and her just like taking it. It sucked. And then to like have him live with her and like whatever. She very much is a woman who loves the convenience store, loves working there, is trying to, you know, conform and be the person that everyone wants her to be. But to like then realize at the end, like, no, I am a convenience store woman. I am someone who is meant to work at a convenience store and I like it and I will continue doing it. But other than that, it just kind of felt very bland and boring, and it's probably not what I'm gonna really quite remember. But it's a 3.5 star book, so I at least enjoyed parts of it. It also doesn't have any chapters. There were no breaks. It was just one long chapter. Okay, guys. On November 5th, I finished Arch Conspirator by Veronica Roth. I really enjoyed this. It was a little tough getting into it in the beginning because I was kind of confused as to what was going on. But by like the middle, towards the end, I was so invested. I'm not quite sure how to explain what this is about, but this is like a sci-fi fantasy retelling of Greek history. We were mainly following Antigone, which I recognize the name. I also recognize the name Eurydice, which was in this book as well. But the other names I didn't quite recognize. But apparently they were all related to each other. I didn't really know this story of Greek mythology going in, and I don't think you need to because I was still able to really enjoy it. You might get more out of the story, or it might be more beneficial if you do know the original story going in. But I mean, I cried. I got quite into it. The story did not go where I thought it was gonna go, but I'm also like not mad at it. Like I don't know, I really liked it and I gave it 4.5 stars. And that's about it. Good evening. It is November 7th. So I didn't read a book yesterday, but thankfully this video is not read a book a day. It is just read 30 books in 30 days. So I read 2 books tonight. The first is And We Rise by Erica Martin. So this is all about the civil rights movement told in poetry, but the civil rights movement more specifically between 1954 and 1968. And like the key moments within the civil rights movement. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was very well researched, and it was very powerful, but very poignant. I think this is a very necessary book. My only issue with it is that I wish it was longer. I really wish they had touched on a lot more. I feel like this is just a brief like introduction into the civil rights movement, which I guess works because this is a young adult book. But I think they definitely could have fit more in here, but I did enjoy the poems. Poetry for me is always so tricky because there's definitely a lot of poetry out there that it's just like not my vibe, but it's always like a hit or miss when it comes to poetry, and there were a couple poems that I just felt like weren't needed, but I understood why they were there, so I'm not mad about them. But overall, I enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars. And then the second book I read, I literally just finished it. It is The Girl from the Sea by Molly Knox Ostertag. This is a graphic novel, young adult. Let me show you. How do I show you pictures? Let me sit you down so I can show you some pictures. Ready, and there you go. I really liked the art styling of it, and it's a queer contemporary romance about this girl who falls in love with a Selkie, and true love's kiss turns the Selkie into a human, and she comes to land. It's a lot about like finding out who you are and not being afraid to hide yourself. But I also think this has a really great storyline of divorced parents. So I think if there are any like kids or teens who are dealing with parents going through a divorce, I think this is a good book for them to read and to check out, even though it's not the main focus of the story. I did very much enjoy it. I got attached to it definitely by the end, but I really wish there had been like an epilogue that was like 7 years later. I would have really liked that. I think that's what it was missing. But still really enjoyed it. Gave it 4 stars. It is November 10th. And I tried to get to 3 books today, but I was only able to get to 1, or at least was only able to finish 1. And thankfully that book was 5 stars. Couldn't put it down. And it is The Puppets of Spellhorst by Kate DiCamillo. I saw this book on a New York Times list because, you know, New York Times and a bunch of other places are starting to figure out what their best book of 2023 is. And this was on the list of like one of the options. It seems like it's going to be the best book of 2023 pick for middle grade books. And so I was kind of interested. It's like, it looked interesting, the cover. And so when I was at the bookstore, I saw it and I saw it was short. And I was like, and it's middle grade, so like the font was kind of big and there were pictures and illustrations. And I was like, oh, this will be perfect for reading a book in one day. But this was so incredible. It's very, I think like old school fairy tale style of like telling a story. But this is just a story about these puppets. You have an owl, a boy, a girl, a king, and a wolf. And it's just like their journey of finding what their story is. But I think what I really liked about this story was that like each of these characters had their own personality, and like they were able to talk and communicate with each other, but obviously the humans could not tell that they're talking or whatever because they're inanimate objects, but these inanimate objects have thoughts and dreams and feelings, and it was just really quite beautiful. And they each go on like their own journey, and then they have like a journey together, and it's just, yeah, no, it like warmed my heart. And I also think the illustrations were quite beautiful. Let me show you an example of one. Okay, like the illustrations just looked so amazing, and they really kind of added to the story actually, so I could have like visuals to go along with it. And I know it's a middle grade and it's for kids, but I do think adults can enjoy this as well. Hello, it's November 12th. and I have read 2 books today, so I'm still behind, but we're gonna catch up. So I read Time Will Tell by Courtney Peppernell. This is, I think, my 6th Courtney Peppernell book that I read. I truly love her. She writes poetry that I love, as you can tell by all of the annotations and highlighting that I do. This was a really great collection of poems. I love the way that she writes and describes grief and loss. I think that's mainly what she writes about, but she also writes about the resilience of people and the struggle of people and how we can embrace and see the beauty of the struggle. Yeah, so I really like Courtney Peppernell. I gave this one 4.5 stars. And then I just finished All the Horses of Iceland by Sarah Tolmie. This is a fantasy historical fiction about this guy, Elvind. I can't pronounce any of the locations or the names, so very sorry. But he is from Iceland and he is traveling, and he ends up working with this group of people and traveling with all these horses back to Iceland. But of course, the journey is a little difficult because there is a lot of war going on, and there's also a lot of different views on religion talked about in here, and that's what's causing a lot of the wars. So as they're traveling through different territories, there's a lot of different laws and a lot of different customs and cultures that they experience, but they also have to abide by. And all our main character cares about is making sure these horses make it to Iceland. And there is some fantasy element in the sense of there's magic, and these horses are very magical, and it turns out that our main character is a magician, and there's ghosts and other interesting things. I do also think this takes place in the 1400s or 1500s, something like that. I kept going back and forth between enjoying and being bored, so it was a little rough getting into it in the beginning. I kind of wasn't really into it, but then once we made it to a certain area and there was a ghost, I kind of got into it. And then once they left that area, I kind of lost interest for a little bit, and then something happened with the horses and I got interested again. So it kept going back and forth between being bored and being interested. I did very much enjoy the ending, and overall I think I did enjoy this book. I'm giving it 3.5 stars. I think I would like to read more from this author. I like to see what else she has. Yeah, so those are those 2 books for today. Okay, so it is November 14th. I'm falling behind, guys, a little bit, but I did read 2 books tonight. I read Excuse Me As I Kiss the Sky by Rudy Francisco. I've read other poetry books by Rudy Francisco, and I really love them. This one, however, is going to be a 3-star. I'm so upset about it because I really like him. What I really liked about this poetry collection was that he experimented with a bunch of different types of poetry. Each section was a different type of poem style, and so it helped me to learn a lot about different types of poetry, and I discovered some poetry that I didn't even know existed that I really liked, and some that I was just kind of meh about. This collection of poetry didn't really stick with me, or I don't want to say connect with me, because it's not, his poetry isn't about connecting to it for some reason, but it's just, his poetry always makes me feel something, and these poems, not all, most of them didn't really make me feel anything, and they're not really rememberable. But I still enjoyed the learning of the different poetry styles, but I'm giving this collection 3 stars. And then lastly, I read A Mirror Mended by Alex E. Harrow. This is the last book in the Fractured Fables duology. First book, we're following Zinnia Gray in a Sleeping Beauty retelling that's very feminist and queer. And in this one, we're still following Zinnia Gray, but this time she finds herself trapped in a Snow White story, and she's like, what is going on? I'm supposed to be in Sleeping Beauty stories. Still queer, still quite feminist, but I liked the shift in going into a bunch of Snow White storylines instead of just constantly going through Sleeping Beauty storylines. I also enjoyed our main character's like discovery of what her own story means and why she keeps trying to run away from it when she should be staying in her own story. And so I liked that character growth that she had. I didn't really see the chemistry between our two characters that are getting a romance. Even towards the end, still did not see any chemistry. But overall, I still enjoyed it and I give it 4 stars. November 16th, I am very far behind. Hopefully I can catch up and read 30 books in 30 days. But I have read a book. It is Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead by Tom Stoppard. This is a play based off of 2 characters from Hamlet. In the play Hamlet, they were like given a task, like a job to do, and so they left, and then that was all we ever knew of them. So this is like them, like what they were doing during that time. But it also kind of wasn't. I don't know. I'm giving this book 1 star. Because I, honest to God, do not know what I read. I don't know what I read. I didn't make, none of this made any sense. So I can't even really tell you what it's about. That's what it says it's about, but I don't think that's what it's about because I have no idea what I read. So yeah, 1 star. November 19th, but I did read a book yesterday. I just got tired. So the book I read yesterday, November 18th, was The Bridegroom Was a Dog by Yoko Tawada. I needed something really short because yesterday I was on a road trip with some friends and we went to Santa Barbara, we went to Solvang, we had like a whole day. It was great. By the time I got home, I was so exhausted. But on the car ride there, I read this book. And that was also when I learned I get motion sickness now in the back of a car, which is fun. Love becoming an adult. I needed something really short for the car ride. And so I decided to go with The Bridegroom Was a Dog, which I knew going in was going to be weird, but I didn't think it was also going to be like a little bit disturbing at times. But with this, we follow a school teacher. The students and like the parents around town kind of find her odd and strange. And then one day this man shows up at her house and they have a relationship, but there's something odd about him too. Like he has like the characteristics of a dog, essentially. So that's what that was. I'm giving it 3.5 stars. Or was it 3 stars? So I did give this 3 stars because there were moments where I was like interested and intrigued with what was going on. And I liked the way that the story was told. But this isn't something I think I would really recommend to people or a book I'd really want to like read again. The book I read today, which I know I'm still 4 books behind schedule. Hopefully I can finish another one tonight. An Elderly Lady is Up to No Good by Helene Thurston. And I gave this 5 stars. I read this, like I started it last night and then finished it today while doing laundry. I absolutely loved it. This is a collection of like short stories following this elderly lady named Maud. She's 88 years old, and each short story is her killing someone. And it was so fun. I loved the way that these like little vignettes are told, and how when we get to the end, it kind of like the stakes get a little higher. But I did see that there is a second book, and I want to read it. But I don't want to buy any more books this month. I might have to get the second one and also read it because this was incredible and I really want the second one. Good morning. I have finished The Scourge Between Stars by Ness Brown. Tried to finish it last night but just got so tired I couldn't. So I finished it this morning. I'm not sure what my rating is for this because I have packed away my computer so I can like put it through my little system to kind of see what the rating's gonna be. I've kind of packed some stuff. I'm not really traveling anywhere. I'm just house and dog sitting for a week. And I need a lot of stuff with me. But I think this is going to be like a 3 star. It was okay. I need to put you down because my arm hurts now. But this is like a sci-fi horror And I love sci-fi horror. This is, I think, the very first sci-fi horror I haven't loved, which is very upsetting. I just think this was a basic, simple story. We have these people on a ship, a spaceship, and these aliens come and are killing people, and they have to get rid of them. I did like a couple of things. Like, I liked the relationship between the daughter and the dad, and how she kind of had to make some hard decisions in that area. And I liked the characters, but I think the story itself just wasn't engaging enough and wasn't like interesting enough for me to want to like really pay attention, if I'm being honest. So I kind of didn't pay attention that much, but it was still okay. It was fine. So I think it's gonna be a 3-star, but if it's different, I'll come back to you and let you know. Hi. It is November 23rd. I've only read one book. It's also Thanksgiving, so happy Thanksgiving. I am dog sitting, which is why I'm in a different location. The dog is currently outside. But I finished a book called The Uncommon Reader by Alan Bennett. I'm actually not quite sure what to rate it because it was kind of boring and also very simple. But it's definitely like an ode to people who love to read. But this is about Queen Elizabeth. Not a real story, at least I don't think so. This definitely seems fiction. But it's about Queen Elizabeth and how she discovers that in her 80s that she loves to read and is just reading constantly, and everyone around her is not happy about it and tries to get her to stop reading. That's essentially the story. There's really nothing else to it. I don't know. There were times where I was interested, times where I was just like zoning out. I think it's gonna be like a 3-star, but it was okay. I don't have much else to say about it. Let's just move on to the next one. Hello. Just took a shower. It's November 25th. I'm falling really behind on the reading, but for some reason taking care of a dog that wants your attention 24/7, as well as reading, it's taking up a good amount of time. But I am getting a lot of movie watching in, which is good. The book I have finished is Thornhedge by T. Kingfisher. This is my first T. Kingfisher book, actually. And I loved this. This was great. It's very, it's a fairy tale retelling. I think it's supposed to be of Sleeping Beauty. This was really interesting in the sense that our Sleeping Beauty character is the evil person, and that's why she's under a sleeping spell. And all of the characters in this were really interesting. Granted, there weren't many, but like our two main characters, Toadling. What is she barking at? The Toadling and Helene, I thought were both very interesting. They were both kind of opposites of each other, but they really came together to understand each other in the end and like each other and work together to try and stop Sleeping Beauty, I guess. But the writing was also very fantastical, which is what you want with a fantasy. And I just thought this was absolutely beautiful, and I thought it was also the perfect ending for this kind of book. And it was perfect for like a short kind of story. Didn't need to be any longer than what it was. So I gave this 4.5 stars. I really loved it. Thank God for audiobooks. I finished another book while I played fetch with the dog, and that was Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan. I was interested in this just because it seemed like a warm, cozy Christmas book. It's not, but it also was very boring. So this takes place in Ireland in 1985, and this is not so much like based on a true story, but it's based on like a true thing that happened in Ireland during this time, where there were these laundromats that were funded by the state and housed by the nuns and the convents and the Catholic Church. But what they were actually doing was torturing these women. And what was it, like a ton of, like tens of thousands of women died in these, as well as their children. So this was not warm and cozy, but we were following this man, Furlong, who delivers coal to these laundry places, mainly one in particular, and he kind of sees what's happening, and doesn't quite know what to do. And he's conflicted because the town is telling him to just ignore it, and some of the people in his life are telling him to just ignore it, but he's like, I feel like I have to do something. And yeah, that's pretty much it, but it was also very boring. It's very quick. It was a 2-hour audiobook, so it was very quick. I don't know, I felt like I didn't feel the feelings that I'm supposed to feel when I'm reading this book. I haven't put it through my rating system yet, so I'm not quite sure what I'm giving it, but I will let you know later what I've given this book. But I'm thinking it's like a 3-star for me. We'll see. Good evening. It is November 27th, and I'm now finally at that point where I'm realizing there are not that many days left in the month, and I am behind. I read 2 books tonight, and they are books 20 and 21, and it's day 27. I should be at 27, not 21. Yeah, so I've got a lot of catching up to do, and hopefully I can do it. Today's books were mediocre. They were both like 3.5 stars for me. So the first one I read was The Christmas Guest by Peter Swanson. I wanted a Christmas mystery thriller kind of book. This is also my first Peter Swanson, but it just ended up being okay. I think I was just kind of underwhelmed with this one, but we've got an American, well, we go back and forth between diary entries from 1989 and present day. We're following this like American girl who is staying with this like rich English family in their manor for the Christmas season. And, you know, there's murder. But then, of course, by the end, we get, like, the answers and how things happened. And to me, it just kind of seemed a little, I don't know, outlandish. And some things just felt a little too convenient. But it was fine if you want just, like, a quick, simple murder mystery fix. I think this should be good and fine for that, but it's just not going to be memorable for me. And then the last one I read today was Lore Olympus Volume 5. This series is just average, and I don't know why I keep reading it, but something about it makes me want to keep reading it. This, too, I wouldn't say was underwhelming, but I think it just had too many characters. And they obviously all connect to each other in some way, and they all connect to, like, our main character, Persephone, and, like, the storyline that's happening. But, like, there's just too many characters to keep track of. So it just kind of gets overwhelming as I'm reading it. Wow, we had underwhelming and overwhelming. It's fine. I still love the artwork. I think the artwork is still gorgeous. It just wasn't really doing it for me. Hello, November 28th. Still trying to catch up. But I read 2 Nikita Gill poetry books today. Nikita Gill I've read from before, and I've really enjoyed her stuff. These were mediocre. Oh, it made me so upset. So the first one I read was Great Goddesses. Life Lessons from Myths and Monsters. So this is a collection of poetry based on Greek mythology, but mainly following the women. And it's like very much female empowerment, which are typically what all of her poetry collections are like. But this one just, it fell flat. It didn't feel memorable to me. I kind of I couldn't focus on it. I kept like zoning out while reading it. There was nothing really that resonated with me. Nothing I really connected with. There were like some names that I recognized, but there were also a lot of names I didn't recognize and I didn't know. I think this is probably better if you know Greek mythology, but I don't know it that well. And so a lot of it just kind of like went over my head. But I gave this 2 stars, which is very upsetting. And then this one is These Are the Words. Fearless Verse to Find Your Voice. Now this is poetry for young adults that's more about just like finding out who you are and then just being who you are and not apologizing for it, but it's mainly advertised for teenage girls because they discuss a lot of things that females typically go through and things that females typically have to deal with. Again, very much a female empowerment kind of poetry, but centered for young adults and more modern and real world. And this one I gave 3 stars. Again, not very memorable. This also does definitely feel like it's more for young adults, but there were some things that adults I think could definitely take out of this. But it just, yeah, it's not memorable. But I enjoyed it a little bit more than Great Goddesses, which is why I'm giving it 3 stars. Hi, it is still November 28th, and I now look insane. But I was able to get through one more book, and that was The Stone Keeper, the first book in the Amulet series by Kazu Kibuishi. This is a middle grade graphic novel series. This is the first in the series. Honestly, it kind of reminded me a little bit of Lock and Key, which I read in last year's video, in the sense that we have kids who have lost their father. Wait, no, this is actually very similar to Lock and Key. We have kids who lost their father, and them and their mom have to move into a new home that's a little run down, but it has some secrets to it. In this one, though, it takes them to a different world. That's what's different with Lock and Key. So far, it seems kind of evil and not a good world. But this is a fantasy middle grade, and it was honestly kind of fun. I'm giving it 4 stars because I really enjoyed it, and I'm interested to continue on with the series. But I don't know, it felt too short. It just felt like the first chapter of a book, if you know what I mean. But it's fine because this is a series. This is technically the first book. Yeah, it just felt like there wasn't really a lot of sustenance to this story so far. There's still a lot of questions. So I might read the next one tomorrow because it is now 11:30 and I'm exhausted. I want to go to bed. Just got back from work and I finished An Elderly Lady Must Not Be Crossed. This is the sequel to An Elderly Lady Is Up to No Good, which I absolutely loved, as you remember. This one was not as good. I still enjoyed it. I'm giving it 4 stars, but I think the magic and appeal of the first book, where it's just like these little short stories of this old lady murdering people and then getting away with it, is just like interesting. And this one didn't have as much murder, and I don't know, it just felt longer than it should have been. Like there were a lot of things that were just happening where I was like, this can be condensed. But I do enjoy the ending. I think the ending was very fitting, and I just love this character of Maud, but I just don't think the stories in this were as interesting as the ones in the first book, which made me love them, but still enjoyable. Now I've got my Christmas jammies on because I usually start December 1st, but I feel like I wanted to start a little early with my Christmas jammies. They are so incredibly soft. Anyway, I read 2 more books. I read The Stonekeeper's Curse and The Cloud Searchers, which are the second and third books of the Amulet graphic novel series. And I gave both of these 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed these. I'm really getting into this story, and I'm having a fun time with these, and I'm really glad I've finally picked them up. We're learning more about this world. We're getting a bunch of new characters, and there's like twists and turns that are happening, and it's just fun. And that's all I can ask for. The second book, this one, The Stonekeeper's Curse, kind of reminded me a little bit of Star Wars because it was very much like the magic in this feels very much like the Force, and Leon feels very much like a Yoda. And like there's a whole training in the second book about, you know, training the Force. Although it's not called the Force, it's just the magic of the stone. And then this third one, we're like looking for a missing city. In this we've got like evil elves as well, but we also have some elves that maybe were evil and maybe now on our side, which is kind of fun. But do we trust them? Don't know yet. And now I'm too tired to read any more books. But unfortunately, I've got 3 more books to go, but 1 day left. So hopefully I can read 3 books tomorrow. Okay, it is November 30th, the last day of the month. I have to read 3 books today. I just got home. Can you see the time? You probably can't, but it is 10:33 p.m. I decided to go see The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes after work a second time because I just really love the movie. But I did read 1 book while at work, and so now I just have to read 2 more books within this time frame, and I really hope I can do it. But the book I read at work was The Cat Who Saved Books by Suzuki Natsukawa. This was a 5-star. This is a 5-star. When I was beginning to read it and like halfway through it, I was like, it's probably like a 4, maybe a 4.5. But then the ending just really clinched it for me. So this is about a talking cat who goes to Rintaro, who is our main character, who has just lost his grandfather, is not going to school, kind of like being depressed, retreating from the world, and trying to just living in his grandfather's bookstore. But this talking cat takes him to these like fantasy worlds where books are being destroyed in different ways, and our main guy Rintaro has to save these books with the help of this cat and maybe a few other friends along the way. This is definitely a book for book lovers. Like, if you love books, this is fantastic. This talks about like all the different ways that people do destroy books or destroy the joy of reading, in a sense, and why there's power in books, why there is power in readings, and what makes it special and beautiful and joyful and all these things. And in the process of saving these books, our talking cat also helps our main character Rintaro kind of find himself again and come out of his shell and come back to life. And it just, by the end, it just all comes full circle, and it all just, it's wonderful, and it's a great journey to go on. And the writing is just absolutely incredible, and I can't rave enough about this book. I really, truly loved it. Good morning. I would have come to last night, but it was very, very late in the evening, so I was tired. But I did happen to read 2 books. Okay, so I read And Then I Woke Up by Malcolm Devlin. I'm giving this 3 stars. It was okay. So this is like a horror. I don't know how to explain this book now that I'm thinking about it. But it kind of plays on your mind, this book, because in this world, there's a virus, and the virus makes you see things that aren't actually true. But it's like our main character, the propaganda says that, you know, he's been infected. So when he sees people trying to attack him, it's actually him attacking them, but his mind is making it think that it's them attacking him. But then it's like, is that what we're being told is true, or are these people actually attacking him and they're just trying to tell him that he's infected when he's actually not? You know what I mean? Like, it's very much playing tricks on your mind, and like, you don't know what's real, what's not real, which I think is interesting, but it made the book very confusing. It made reading the book very confusing. And to be honest, I'm already forgetting stuff about the book. Like, I think I've already forgotten the ending. I don't remember how this ends. But I'm not sure if that's just because I was tired or if it's because it's not memorable. But either way, giving it 3 stars. It was okay. And then the last book that I read, my 30th book of the month, was The Last Council by Kazu Kibuishi, the 4th book in the Amulet series. This is another 4.5 book for me. I'm really truly enjoying this series. In this, we're meeting the last council. We're going to this city that's like hidden, and we found it. And the people there you know, we think they're gonna help us. We're going there because we think these people are gonna help us, but maybe they're not. Maybe they have sinister plots of their own that they want to do. I read 30 books in 30 days. Almost didn't think I was gonna make it by the end. But I will be back with you to wrap everything up. Okay, guys. These are the 30 books that I read in the 30 days of November. And this stack is about to fall. So let me... Oh, good. So now, to end this video, I think I just kind of want to go over everything, maybe go over some stats, and just kind of discuss not so much what I've learned, because I don't think I really learned anything by doing this challenge, but I did have fun doing it. I think mostly I have had stress doing this. I would not recommend people do this challenge, but at the same time I did get some good books out of it and some good times out of it, but as you saw, it was definitely stressful. But let's go over some books that I didn't like, books that I did like, how many of each star that I have, and see how successful I was. Hey guys, something I forgot to mention in my wrap up of this video here is that I am only now 3 books behind schedule on my reading goal for the year. So hopefully I can still make it. I've moved myself down. Unfortunately, you can see the mess that is my room behind me. I'm working on cleaning it. But for right now, let's go over stars. So I gave one book 1.5 stars. This was my least favorite. And then I had one 2-star, which was another disappointment, just because I absolutely love Nikita Gill. Then I had 6 3 stars, books that were just average, but some of them were also disappointing and I was hoping to get more out of them. I also had 6 3.5 stars. Some were honestly better than I thought they would be, and some were less as good as I thought they would be. So there were also some disappointments in there. And then I had 7 4 stars. So I'm glad to see that most of these books were in the higher range than in the lower range. Yeah, I genuinely enjoyed all of these. I had 6 4.5 stars. Really happy to have started a new series that I really like. And then lastly, I had 3 5 stars. Honestly, I was looking through all the other books that I've read this year, and these are my top 3 books of the year. Like, none of the other 5 stars I read this year top these. And I think they're actually in order from my least favorite 5-star to my most favorite 5-star. Like, this one was incredible, and I honestly want to reread it. This one I also want to reread because it's just so fun. And this one was just gorgeous. I don't know how to explain, but yeah. So happy to have gotten 3 new absolute favorite books out of this video. So that makes my average star rating for this video a 3.5. 3.58 to be exact. So I guess we can round up to a 3.6. So pretty much like in the middle, which is not always good, but at least I did get a lot of really good books out of this video. And I'm not quite sure how else to end this for you guys, but yeah, this is my second time doing this challenge for myself, and maybe this is something I'll do every year for myself. But maybe I'll skip next year because this one was rough. This one was tough to do. I promise a wrap-up is coming up. I'm just going to combine the 3rd and 4th quarter wrap-ups because I just completely forgot to do the 3rd quarter wrap-up videos. So yeah, so I will see you guys with more videos soon. Bye!